Is it like a today? Oh my gosh! Here it is, fired up. Everybody, get hyped. Friday, happy hour edition.
I was expecting more like funk rather than like hard rock.
It's like, oh, what's up, everybody? Here we go. All right, yes. 1, 2. This is such dad energy I have right now. God damn it, what's going on?
Friday dad energy.
Friday dad energy.
Love that.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Denver Sports Podcast presented by Breckenridge Brewery. I'm your host, Adam Mattis, today, and I'm joined by some esteemed colleagues of mine. Joining me, as always, it's Ryan Koenigsberg.
Neither of us are esteemed in any way on this couch.
Just steamed.
It is pretty steamy in here, I'll be honest.
The only thing I'm esteemed at is steaming my couch.
What the hell does that even mean?
It relates to a tweet I had last week where I was talking about Wyndham Clark, and it's a guy I played golf with back in the day, and he was leading a tournament, and I was literally steaming my couch watching him lead the tournament.
You have a new couch?
Yeah.
So you were steaming your new couch?
There's fucking hair all over it, man. It's horrible.
Oh, dog
That's
hair.
the one problem with the dog. One of a few problems you have with the dog. They're worth it, but the hair everywhere. This is, of course, Big Drive Spence, our golf pro.
I'm here.
We're
Ready to
talking
rock.
dynasties today. I mean, the Warriors is topical, right? We got a couple different dynasty-adjacent things going on. The Golden State Warriors just won their 4th championship in, I believe, 8 years, is it?
Yes, 4 and 8.
4 and 8. We'll talk about whether or not that qualifies for a dynasty. You've got the Colorado Avalanche, who are trying to stop a dynasty in the Tampa Bay Lightning and perhaps even start one of their own. And then you got some other teams in Denver, the Broncos, who are set up. Perhaps, I mean, you never want to put the, cart before the horse here. You want to win one. That's always the goal. But we could talk about, are they set up to maybe create a dynasty and maybe win off multiple, as Russell Wilson tells us he is. Nikola Jokic is here for at least 6 more years. Is there a chance for a dynasty there? We're going to talk all about that. But first thing I want to ask is, do we like dynasties? Is dynasties a good thing in sports? Spence, how do you feel about it?
I actually love dynasties because it gives the other 31 fan bases a chance to join together and say, fuck this team.
Okay.
That's what I love about it. Like, I hate the Minnesota Timberwolves, but we can both together hate the Golden State Warriors.
It brings people together.
Yes.
Dynasties bring people together. This is funny.
I actually agree with this. Now, there is a point where it gets too much. Like, I think the Patriots they crossed the line of like, oh, it's fun to hate them, to like, oh my God, just give us something else, anything else, Yeah. So to me, thank you, Eagles, for putting a stop to that. But it's one of those things where I think Spencer's on the right track here. You can all rally around something. Now, what I will say is, and they aren't there yet, but no one is like rallying around the Lightning. Doesn't feel like. And I think it's because I haven't even noticed their fans yet. Like, where are their fans? Are they online? Because they're not in my mentions, and like Blues fans and Oilers fans.
It's because Tampa Bay is not a hockey town. Like, it's the dumbest thing ever. I don't understand it. I honestly makes me a little bit bothered. We talked about this, I think, a little bit last week, but it makes me like a little annoyed that there is a good hockey team in Tampa Bay.
I learned the other day that they have more wins than any other team since they entered the league.
That's so weird, man.
It's like nobody gives a shit.
Right.
You can't, like, Amelie's pretty full, but around there, it's nobody's like running around like talking about the Lightning like we do the Avs here.
And like I said, I haven't noticed their presence online at all, and so no one's banding together against them. But like, I saw these people complaining about like all the hate Steph Curry gets, and it's like he gets hated because he's good. That's what happens with dynasties is people hate them, and that's what makes them fun.
People don't really hate Steph though. I think the Warriors might have the dynasty, one of the dynasties people like the most. I mean, you can go back to the 90s, maybe we're going to get into some of those, but I don't know, like the Warriors do have some people that hate them, but I feel like you go to Ball Arena, there's a million Warriors fans. Every kid that's like south of 14 loves Steph Curry, so I don't know. I don't think he gets that much hate relative to most dynasties.
Maybe. I mean, he's definitely not getting hated in the way that like LeBron does.
Yeah.
But like, I can't stand Clay. I don't like Draymond. Steph is hard for me to hate because I think he's the most aesthetically pleasing basketball player.
Of course,
ever.
We're gonna get into
so
all
I
of
can't
this.
hate that because it's unbelievable to watch. But the other guys, screw them. I don't like them.
Well, to flip this take a little bit that I just had, because you reminded me of something thinking about the Warriors fans in Denver. We have it great here. Denver's a great city, but sports wise, we have it pretty rough. Other than Denver, the Broncos. Of like fans just invading our arenas.
Oh, gotcha.
And that drives me nuts.
Does that happen with Avs?
It with the Blackhawks it does, with the Blues it kind of does.
It wouldn't have happened like this year with the Blackhawks.
Yes.
When the Blackhawks were really good and the
see.
Avs were bad,
Right.
they definitely would come in and take over.
Yeah, there's a few teams like that, but that dynasties may ruin sports fans moving forward because you have everybody growing up that's like my kid is not going to be allowed to like any other team outside of Denver
because you're going to be like a great father. That's why I'm telling you.
He can like a player. That's fine. Like I like different players, but even though I love Nikola Jokic. If he ever left and he was a Chicago Bull, I wouldn't become a Bulls fan. I'd still be cheering for Jokic, but you wouldn't see me like cheering for the Bulls.
100,000%. I'm telling you, by the way, I mean this. You mentioned this about the kids thing. I honestly believe this. Like my kids came to me and they're like, I just like the Lakers. I would be like, no, we don't. Like we're going to, gently. No, I'm telling you, I'd just be like, hey, look. Here's the thing. This is a cool thing we share together. Like hey, and if they were like, do that, I'd be like, go downstairs. I'm not,
you don't get to watch it.
I would be like, you can do your chores and make some money to buy that jersey. I'm not getting you that.
Yeah, we're not buying league pass.
What are you talking about? I'm not doing. Yeah, I'm not buying league pass. Figure out a way.
There's so many people who say like you can't control who your kids like,
and it's true. Like you could push them away.
Yeah, but it's all about like if you have the privilege, and it is a privilege, but if you can take your kids to a Rockies game, to the Nuggets games, to the Avs, they're naturally going to enjoy that. They're naturally going to have fun. Those are good experiences. Of course. So they're going to latch on to that hometown, which is what your goal is.
Because that's what you're doing. You're connecting with them.
You can't do the thing, though, where it's like, oh, I can never talk to dad after the Nuggets lose because he's such an ass. Then they negatively associate the Nuggets. So like, you have to be
kids
careful.
are in trouble then.
I'm a monster.
But we did like a long segment on the Broncos thing, or I shouldn't even call it a segment. It was a running series where people told us their origin stories. And you would be shocked. Maybe you wouldn't. How many people said like, I was just pissed at my parents. We were watching Monday Night Football and they were Raiders fans. And so I'm like, I'm a Broncos fan. And just stuck for the rest of my life. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. But see, this is what I'm saying is that when I see this is my own judgment, and I do it partly a little tongue in cheek. I don't really like carry these resentments. But when I see a dad at the arena, in his like Broncos gear, and then there's the kid there that's in his Patriots gear, I'm like, must be a disconnect there. Not parenting very closely. Yeah, like, your kid must not like you the way that my kids like me. Sorry.
Yeah, so funny story about that. There's
I keep that one to myself, our kid, but I think it when I walk by.
There's going to be someone listening to this who's like sad that
they're like,
there's a family that sits in front of us at Nuggets games, and they always wear Nuggets gear. There's two parents. They bring one of their sons normally, and then they'll bring another son sometimes, or his friend, and they just hang out. They are always cheering for the Nuggets. And then last year it was the game against Golden State, or maybe whenever we could go to games, and it was the game Golden State had like 50 points in the first quarter.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And both of their kids were wearing all Golden State stuff.
Of course.
And the parents, the best part is the parents looked at us and were like, give them as much shit as you possibly can. These guys are a joke. And the parents who were still wearing Nuggets gear, they're like, we buy them season tickets, we bring them to all these games, and then they're sitting here wearing fucking Steph Curry headbands.
Who bought them those jerseys?
Yeah, that's probably the worst part. Exactly.
They didn't buy it themselves, I can tell you that.
Well, and on this line, getting back kind of to the dynasty thing, because like I watched the Warriors win. I kind of hate the Celtics just because I have this thing against Boston. It's whatever.
Same.
It's just I enjoy rooting against Boston, but
I enjoy rooting against anything on the East.
And I kind of like the other thing is I agree, strongly agree. But I also have this thing where like I like the way the Warriors have done it. It's like a homegrown team. They're a model in many ways for how I think it's best to run an organization. So I'm like, all right, I'll reward that, especially in contrast to super teams, which is this era. So I'm rooting for him. But after the game, J.A. Adonde, who I think is great, he's one of the guys I grew up on. I think he's fantastic at what he does. He put out this tweet that just like made me regret ever feeling good feelings about it. And he's like, man, LeBron and Steph's careers have intertwined. Wouldn't it be great if they matched up 4-4? Wouldn't it be great if they matched up? And I was like, no. What? No, I don't want this. Like, it almost feels like Jurassic Park 9 or whatever we're on right now, where they're like, you know what? Let's just keep doing
Fast 12.
Fast 12. Let's just keep. Wouldn't it be great if now we brought them against it? Like, no,
we already did that 3 times.
We did, exactly. We actually have a whole trilogy of it. It wasn't that great. It was actually pretty lame. All right, let's define what is a dynasty, because I think this is like one of the biggest arguments you can get into in sports. What constitutes a sports dynasty? And let's talk specifically about the Big Four.
Okay, the Big Four. For me, it's hard to get exact numbers right, but I feel like if you're winning or playing in more than half the championships over a 6+ year period. Okay. I know that's very specific, but it's basically saying like over a 5 to 6 year period, you're either winning 3 of those championships or you're in 3 of those Super Bowls, et cetera, et cetera. Like the Lightning right now with a win in this Stanley Cup, which isn't going to happen, would essentially become a dynasty for me because it's been it's been a couple of years over time. Patriots is an obvious dynasty, but that was like they weren't in it every single year, but they were pretty much in the AFC Championship game every single year.
So I think you're kind of getting at this. Three-peat to me is an automatic dynasty.
Yes.
You get a three-peat. That's the easiest way to do it because there's no questions asked. You're in. But you're saying there's these other ways that you can get in.
Yeah, I'm saying like if you were to win, like if the Broncos would have won a Super Bowl in 2003, 2002, 2003, something like that, like where it's like 97, 98, and
man,
then
that's
2003.
so far
like,
back though. That's like 3
What about that? Isn't that the Warriors?
Kind of. All right.
When was their last one?
It was in 2018.
So 4 years. That's
Yeah.
about the same thing,
Yeah.
although this is their fourth, which is a little different. To me, I'm with you on this, but you have to have at least 3.
Okay. Oh, so you have to have a
So you can't like
total of
win
3.
2 and then
Right.
get to 4 straight more.
Right.
You never completed the dynasty, in my opinion.
right.
Yeah, because like
I like
even
that. Didn't
even though it's
complete
only
the dynasty.
even though it's only one, like thinking about the Chiefs being in 4 straight AFC Championship games kind of feels like, but
Yeah,
they don't
yeah.
feel like it at all. They
Of
don't
course,
even sniff
yeah.
it to me.
Yeah.
Right.
The Bills, didn't they make 4 straight? Didn't win any. Or
Right.
like,
Yeah. They
come on, what are we
lost.
doing
Yeah.
here?
Exactly. So you have to. I think you have to win 3. The Broncos, obviously, never
Right.
like they got their 2, and then John just retired.
That's a back-to-back. Yeah.
Right. They could have had it. So we haven't had one here. The Avs, if they were able to just get one more in the 96 to 01 gap, I think
Yeah.
you would have been able to call that a dynasty.
So here's the one other qualifier. So I think for me, 3 in a row, automatic, you're in, entry. No questions asked, you're in. The other thing, though, I think is you have to have the same core players. And I don't think there's a lot of examples of this, but there are some teams that like had a dynasty or like a mini dynasty back-to-back, lost a bunch of players, almost rebuilt on the fly, and then had a new team, and you could almost connect them, like you could almost bridge them. But I'm like, that's 2 different teams. It's the same. It's almost like 2 different type of mini dynasties, micro dynasties instead of one. So there has to be your best player or some of your best players have to be the through line through this for me.
Right. Well, the actual definition of dynasty,
Oh, wow.
the literal term, is a sequence of rulers from the same family.
Ooh, I like this.
So you have to like keep that bloodline,
Yeah,
right?
there's
There
gotta be
has
a
to be a
bloodline.
consistent bloodline.
You could change who the top dog is, like, you started as one thing, and then over time, this guy became the main guy,
Like
and this guy.
McKinnon passing it on to McCarr if the Avs had already won one.
Oh man! But now we're speaking. To me, I think we have to be more solid than this. Like, to me, it has to be 3 and 4, or 4 and 7. And the reason I was going through a couple different ones of these, I think it's kind of what you're getting at. The 3 part is important, but to me, there are some guys that won, like, to your point, 3 out of 7. But to me, I'm like, I don't know, man. It's so fragmented. And then here's the big thing. The Celtics are the greatest example of this. I don't think the Lakers and Celtics had an 80s dynasty, because I don't think another team could have a dynasty inside your dynasty. That doesn't. That's inherently not a dynasty if somebody else ruled.
Rulers, yes.
So that's actually a good assessment, and I would pull this back to now. What if like the Warriors won? Back to like the family thing or the same people. Like, what if the Warriors had Steph and Clay and Draymond for a 12-year period, and every third year won one? I think that overall is a dynasty team. Like, you could also break it out. Like, granted, other sports don't have that long of careers and that many players together. But like, to me, every title the Warriors win from now on, when Steph and Clay and Draymond are there, or one of the 3 at least, that's still part of it. It could go another 5, 6, 7 years.
There's one team that I think makes an example of this we'll get to in a second that maybe I think proves your point.
I'm just going to say this about the Warriors. I think being the worst team in the NBA at one point in there breaks the chain. And now they have to start a new chain.
Yes and no, though. Here's the problem. They were injured. That to me, because I'm with you. One of my other qualifiers here is you have to be competitive throughout. And I do think there's something to, if you had the 1 year where everybody got hurt, it's like, okay, that like the plague descended on you or something. Your dynasty had
that should have been an insane advantage for them, that they were able to keep their core together and get the number 1 overall pick, and it didn't even matter in this championship, which is crazy.
Yeah, one of the craziest stats I heard going back to the Warriors, I think it's 19-0 now or 20-0. But Steve Kerr is like 20-0 in playoff series in the Western Conference.
Yeah,
and
it's ridiculous.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They don't lose. I mean, that's the thing is like the only time they lost one Draymond got suspended for a game or whatever. Like they actually, the thing about the Warriors that Pitt sells, we can get into this now because the Warriors winning this one, I think it's a dynasty, but they kind of like aren't quite there. But I look at it, the games they lost, they won 73 games, which is a record, and they lost a little bit on a technicality. Andrew Bogut gets hurt, Draymond gets suspended, comes down to the final second of Game 7, and they lose. Whatever, you lost, that's what happened. But I'm like, they were competitive enough for me to be like, they were as close as you can get to a title without getting it. And then in 2019, you lose Kevin Durant, he gets hurt. You lose Klay Thompson in the finals, he gets hurt. All right, again, I can comfortably say I think they would have won had those acts of God not happened.
So they've been to 6 of the last 8?
Yeah, they only missed 2019. Or no, they missed 3. They missed 2019, 20, and 21.
Okay.
So, no, 2019 they were there. They didn't win. Yeah, they made it. Yeah, you're right. They made it. So they only missed 2 of the last one.
So they've been to 6 of 8?
Correct.
Yeah, and they have 4, I mean.
And the ones they lost are kind of like circumstances happen that are almost somewhat beyond their control.
Yeah, and I will say, going back to your point, is I do respect this dynasty because they just drafted these dudes. Like, yeah. I respect this title maybe the most, maybe the first one even more. Right. But the KD ones, I don't necessarily respect those titles, but it's still dirty. The same team.
They're dirty, yeah.
It's like that 3 of Klay, Draymond, Steph is just, as much as it pains me to say it, it's insane. Yeah, what they're doing in the playoffs,
and it revolutionized the sport.
They did so many things that wildly entertaining. Like it would be one thing if they were the most boring team ever, and we're like we had to suffer through it. Wildly entertaining, mostly homegrown. They have a cool identity. They've beat up a bunch of super teams, which is part of what makes them good. Is they can't be the evil empire when they kind of kept beating the new evil empires, which is kind of nice. So they have that built in. So to me, I'm comfortable saying they are. Let's get a couple more in here. The Spurs, I'm going to stick to basketball for a second. Never won a back-to-back. They won in 99, 2003, 5, 7, and again in 2013.
Wow.
They won 50 games every single year for 18 years, so they were always competitive. They never had a drop-off, but they never won back-to-back. Dynasty or no dynasty?
That goes back to my point of it being the same core, it being Manu, Tony. Yeah. Was Robinson at the end of that beginning?
So he won in 99, but they won with the core you're talking about in 2003, 5, and 7.
Yeah, that to me is 3 of 5. That's it.
They're in it.
Yeah.
It's so weird because they were never, I don't know the word, scary. Like they were like so methodical in the way that they beat you.
You're getting to a good. I like this.
That there's some sort of like fear part of it where it's just like, oh, this is a dynasty. Like you see them in the playoffs and you're just like, you're in so much trouble. And you definitely felt that.
I had that for the Spurs.
You definitely did feel that for the Spurs, but there's just something weird about it. And I think it's the Flash.
Boring. Yes. They were boring is what you're getting at. Because, yes, they would beat you, but they would beat you less in like a, oh, my God, we're just taking punches now. They would beat you as in the fourth quarter and we only scored 14 points, and it's kind of lame.
When the Warriors beat you, it's like, oh, my God, a tidal wave
you're
just
almost
washed
humiliated.
over us, and there's nothing we can
do.
They're
dancing and this or that, and really it was positional. They kept forcing you into tough contested shots and rebounding it, and you're like, well, this is a bummer.
I feel like there needs to be so 18 years is too long for a dynasty.
Yeah.
Like, because they weren't the dominant team for that whole period.
And there was the Lakers had a dynasty in the middle of that, so
there's a weird thing there where it's like there should be another word for like sustained dominance.
I agree.
Because a dynasty to me is like a burst. But the Patriots are kind of the same way where it's like I think they did get at least one back-to-back. But it was like then a break, then another one, then a break, then another one.
Are the Spurs a dynasty?
That goes back to like my point of saying like over the time with the same core, if you win, I like the idea that 3 has to be a qualifier, and especially if you've done it with the same team and that's what makes sports so fun is because you have these bursts of other teams beating them where everybody's like rooting for the other team unless you're a Spurs fan. Yeah. And so I do believe that's a dynasty. Like when you look back at, because it kind of that imprint of your mind, it's not necessarily the Spurs. It's like you see Ginobili, Parker, and Duncan, and Popovich. And it's the same guys. They're throwing in pieces here and there, but the general same guys and same rosters winning titles.
This next one I think is the hardest one. Maybe it's not. Because one of the questions I want to ask about the Spurs was their dynasty 2003 to 7, or was it 1999 to 2013 or 14? 3 to 7. See, I kind of disagree with that, but this is where it gets hard. The next one, most uncomfortable one, my least favorite one, the New England Patriots. Now, they won in 2002, 4, and 5, then went 10 years without winning and won in 15, 17, 19.
Two separate dynasties.
Two separate dynasties.
Yes.
Yeah,
Even though it's the Tom Brady, Belichick era?
Yeah, but you can't have, you said 10 years?
Yeah, it's a 10-year gap.
Crazy. I don't even remember.
4, 5, and then 15.
You can't have a 10-year gap in your dynasty.
And they were good. It wasn't like they were bad, but
it's two separate, and it is weird that it's the same core,
right?
But it's got to be two separate to me.
Tom Brady's a dynasty. Just put it that way. The Brady family is the dynasty that just continues to rule with the same ruler.
That's what we needed. We do need to come up with another word because it is a dynasty, but there's something different for. They had two dynasties, and it's an overarching whatever it is we're looking for.
Right, they were still in several AFC championship games and that played in several Super Bowls.
They got diminished for a while, but. Yeah, they were good. This is tough. Let's hit a break. On the other side, I got a couple more of these just to kind of set us up before getting into the Colorado Avalanche, who are trying to start their own dynasty right now.
And you can bet on that. Well, maybe you can't bet on them having a dynasty, but you can bet on them ending the Lightning dynasty over at DraftKings Sportsbook right now.
Can I tell you, I made a bet, and it wasn't on that, but I made a bet last night. In the moments after the Warriors, the confetti was falling, I made a bet on our Denver Nuggets to win. 15-1 on DraftKings last night. I made the bet.
Love that.
Honest to God, like I rarely do this, but last night I was sitting there and I'm just thinking, like, why can't they? These teams aren't that good.
I like having that ticket too. Like
I do too.
It's fun to have in the slip.
And I want it to say June 16th on the bottom of it if I get to cash it next year.
There you go. I wanted to get a Jokic MVP last night. And then I went in there and I'm like, oh, they finally figured it out. He's only plus 800 now.
Right.
Anyways, you can bet 5 on any any NHL Stanley Cup Final game and get $150 in free bets over at DraftKings Sportsbook. So throw it on the Avs. And the best part is it doesn't matter if they win or lose, although we kind of know it's going to happen here. They're going to win tomorrow night. And you can win $150 in free bets just for placing a $5 or more bet on the Avs. So get in on that over at DraftKings and then use that $150 for whatever you please. Of course, you must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus, first bet match, each for $500. Deposit bonus requires 25x playthrough. Restrictions to apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. And
are you not impressed with that? I'm impressed with that.
Yeah,
man.
you can turn that. Oh, if you're listening to this podcast version, you can turn it back to 1x.
That's got to be crazy in 2x speed. Also, if you want to watch the Nuggets go on a championship run, as Adam has predicted next season, you're probably going to need Avaca TV. Our friends over at Avaca have solved the issues that we've been having in Denver for multiple seasons now of not being able to watch the Avs or Nuggets on TV. If you get Avaca, it's affordable, it's cheap, and you can watch the Avs, Nuggets, and Rockies on there, actually. So $25 a month, that's just the beginning of their programming. They have a ton more, plus $5 a month for your receiver. And when you use the code DNVR and you go to avaca.tv/DNVR, you can get $10 off your first 3 months over at Avaca, so check them out.
It's crazy that, just a real quick plug of Avaca, like that is why I get cable. Like, I bought DirecTV a couple years ago when I bought a house so I could watch the Nuggets and watch the Rockies and the Avs.
Yep.
And that they literally do that for you for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
All right, I want to run through these real quick. Just give me like a yes or no. The 60s Celtics won like 8 in a row. They're an obvious yes. They go back to the 60s in all sports. There's like, I went back through hockey. There's like 4 teams that won over a 25-year period. It was nothing but.
Well, and there's like 4
teams.
teams in the league.
Yeah. 80s Lakers is a tough one. Dynasty or no dynasty. They won. Let me see here the order of this because I don't think they won in a row. You go 1980 Lakers, 82 Lakers, 85 Lakers, 87, 88 Lakers. So they win 5 in an 8-year period, but
they
only
did get
back to
3
back.
and 4
They did get a 3 and 4. So do you count the whole?
To me, I'm much more about
The same guys though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that qualifies for me for sure.
It's the 1980 to 88 is the
just the 80s
dynasty.
is the Lakers dynasty.
Yeah.
90s is the Bulls.
It is weird that the Celtics get 3 during that, which
That's
is
what
your
I mean.
arch rival.
That derails. You have to start a new
It's a
one.
split dynasty. All right. 90s Bulls. Is that one dynasty or 2?
What are the years?
91 to 93, 96 to 98. Jordan retires in the middle of that. That's why they don't win.
2 separate, in my opinion.
Wow.
Oh God, Jordan retiring But to me, I just have to go back to the same players, same core. I take it as one.
Phil Jackson and Jordan. To me, it's one dynasty. It just had this weird break in the middle of it. That's one dynasty. 2000 Lakers won 3 in a row. Automatic qualification. We just talked about the Warriors. We go to NFL Patriots.
If you get divorced and then you remarry the person you divorced, when's your anniversary?
How when somebody asks you how long you've been married for, what do you say?
Took a little break there.
Total 14 years, but there's a little bit.
You do, though. Think about it. If you did, I think you say.
Yeah,
you'd be like, we've been married 20 years from 1980 to,
90
to 2012.
Had a little break in there,
like, wait,
but
what?
we're good.
Like, well, we had a little break.
Yeah. I feel like people would make jokes about it. Like,
The anniversary is the new one, the most recent one.
Oh, well, that's an even better one in the sense of like, people now, instead of when you get married, that's what your new anniversary date is, not when you guys started dating, right? That's like,
of course.
Well, of course. When you get married,
like
that's
a
your anniversary date.
Anniversary and a dating.
In this hypothetical scenario where you're divorced, I feel like you owe it to yourself to get remarried on the same day. Because if you
that's smart.
if you get remarried, you're just going to the justice, right? You're just going to the courthouse. There's no way you have a second. If
I've
my
never
friend
actually
gets
If you're
married
married,
desperate for the gifts.
if my friend
If
gets
you're
married, gets
desperate for
divorced,
the
marries
gifts.
the same person as like, hey, are you coming to the wedding? It's in Hawaii. I'm like, bro. What?
We already did this.
I'm not buying you the toaster. I'm not doing this. Like, hey, we're
No, you
Can I
know people
recycle
just
my
say that
best
their
man
vow.
speech from 96.
They're renewing their vows. I bet you that's how someone would put it if that were the
then
case.
if you get remarried on the same day, isn't that like bad juju?
Ooh.
Because you already
we've really created a pickle for ourselves. An unanswerable question.
Does Sheila remember your dating
No,
anniversary?
of course not. No,
well, because
absolutely not.
they're from high school.
Yeah, we go way back too far.
That's
like,
true,
I have
that's
no
true.
idea.
Yeah, see, I had an issue with this past week, actually. The whole dating anniversary, and I was like, oh, should I celebrate this? And I'm like, I'm married now. And then I'm like, maybe I should at least mention it.
So it came and went.
Yeah.
How'd you approach it?
Well, actually, it's funny because she had it on the calendars the wrong day.
Oh.
The wrong day you're dating.
But then I made a comment about it, and then I was like, well, you said it was the wrong day. I know what day it is. And then it turned into me being wrong somehow, and it was the whole thing. But
one of those arguments you won but lost for winning.
Exactly. Oh yeah, you lose every
Like,
argument.
my
It's either
fault
the first part or the
for
second
being
part.
correct about this. I should have been wrong with you. We just talked about the Patriots. The Cowboys have an interesting one as well because they didn't win in a row. They went in 93, 94, but then again in 96. I guess that's 3 and 4. We'll call them. Are we calling that a dynasty? 3 and 4. 94,
Yep.
90.
Yeah.
All right. We got 49ers won 4 in the 80s in a decade. I feel like that qualifies them. And then the 70s.
Any back-to-backs?
What was it? Let me look here. I can't remember what it was. San Fran gets 82, 85, 89, 90.
Yep.
And then again
that's
in
a long
95.
one.
So, and then the last one, you have the 70 Steelers. They won them in a row. Giants 3 of 5 was that one for baseball.
And theirs was every other.
It was every other year.
So no
back-to-backs.
That
It kind of didn't feel like a dynasty to me, but
I don't know. Baseball just like doesn't feel like it can have dynasties because it's constant. It's so many different players that make like you have that one year where like the Cubs where everything comes together, they win it,
right.
And then it's like, are they everybody leaves, gets more money. I feel like
Yeah, that
baseball's the
happens a
worst
lot,
sport
yeah.
of that where it's like those guys just go get paid because
there's
they
no
won
salary cap.
They won a World Series.
I think the only one I saw in the modern era though was the Yankees in the 90s. They won 4 or 5. It's a dynasty, so
Yep,
you got to
for
hand it
sure.
to them. And then lastly, NHL, Tampa Bay currently on one. Oilers win 5.
Wait, they aren't currently on
Currently
one yet.
working towards one.
Yes.
We're trying to win one. Oilers win 5 in the 80s. The Islanders win 4 in a row in the 80s. And then in the 70s, you get the Canadians. But outside of that, that's what's crazy. I don't think there's another hockey dynasty in the last 30 years. You got to go back-to-backs. That's it.
The Avs were so close. In that gap, they went to 2 Western Conference Finals, lost in Game 7.
Right. An alternate universe.
They
you get a lot.
very easily could have gotten one more, and we would have called it.
And then in college, it's different because guys aren't around for that long. In basketball, Florida got 2, Duke got 2, UCLA won 10 in a row, but you have to go back to the 60s and 70s, so I don't know. Is Alabama a dynasty football?
Yes.
yeah.
Like the most dynasty.
To me,
But none of back-to-back, though.
yeah, it's also impressive when
Really?
because they've played in how many title games in a row?
That's it. They're always in them. Like if they don't win it, they lost in the title game.
How many do they have?
So since they started, the first one comes in 2009. So you win in 09, 11, 12. So you do get one back-to-back. 15, 17, and 20.
Yeah, I feel like so that we definitely have the qualifier of you have to win 3. But I feel like it's when they're at the beginning of the season, when you're talking about a season and you're like, that team's going to be there every single year, at least in the final 4 of their certain sport. That doesn't make a dynasty, but that helps push something towards that, where it's like, fuck, we know Alabama football is going to be in the college football playoff.
To me, it's the least it's the least difficult one, because college football, to me, more than anything, you can capitalize on momentum. Because you have the best players, you get the best players. You have the best players, you get the best players, and you just keep it rolling. But at the same time, it's also the scariest dynasty to me. Like, they are the most dominant, scary team of my lifetime. It's just like they're gonna win. Like, even if they don't, it's a massive upset every game, not just every season, every game.
Right.
Yeah, they have in-division games where they're like a 30-point favorite.
Yeah,
and it's like.
Basketball, because of the tournament, I think it's just too hard. Like I don't think we'll see a three-peat. So to me, 2 is good enough. Duke has that. Florida has that. Nobody else has that. So 2 to me is almost the dynasty for college basketball.
And college is so difficult because your players are only staying for 1, maybe 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, that Florida was that the Corey Brewer, Joakim Noah.
Don't you remember? That's an iconic team to me. To me, I was like, dude, that's a dominant college team, a very memorable one, and it was 2. And it's like, that's
Billy Donovan.
Billy Donovan, the head coach there. All right, let's get into the Avs here. So we'll talk Denver Dynasty. I thought it was funny last night. Rudo put out the tweet where he's like, basketball can have their dynasties. Hockey, we're looking to stop one. And I'm sitting here thinking, my initial thought would have been we're trying to start one. Because I look at this Avs team and I go, they're really good. And there's something I have so much respect for, I'm a new hockey guy, but I have so much respect for Tampa Bay because watching them play, it's like I already get it. They're a really talented team, not as talented as the Avs, but they just have the institutional knowledge. They're just a team that you can so tell that they're a team that have been there and been there. So I almost like have this respect for them, but it's this respect that comes with I respect that I have to beat you because I just feel like the Avs are as good. And I look at them and I go, I don't know. I see this as the start, potentially as the start of a new dynasty.
It very well could be. The one thing about hockey and the reason why the Lightning are on this doorstep right now is their goaltender.
Yeah.
And it's the reason why the Avs were like that, from 06 to 01 or, even beyond that a little bit. And that's the one thing that makes me hesitate with the Avs. But if a basketball team had 2 of the 5 best players in basketball, you're saying like this team has what it takes to become a dynasty.
Right.
Who's going to stop them? And that's where I'm at with the Avs. Like Makar and McKinnon are 2 of the 5 best players in hockey. And so if they get over this hump, I feel like it's just going to catapult them into we're just better than everyone, so let's just go be better than everyone.
Yeah, that's the exact mode the Lightning are in right now.
Yep.
Like, they've won 2 in a row. They get down 3-2 to Toronto, gone. They get down 3-1, gone. They get down 2-0 to the Rangers, win 4 in a row.
Right.
Like, they have that aura about them where when the Celtics went up 2-1, like the Celtics are a really good basketball team, but I was like, it's the Warriors. They're not going away. And so, like you said, it's the Avs getting over that hump of, okay, they lost in the second round, they finally won in the second round. Then they just swept their way through the Western Conference Finals. Now they're like, if they come back next year with relatively the same team, which is part of the hardest part of making a dynasty, they're young enough, they're talented enough to where it's like, we just did it. Why not us? Why can't we do it again?
There also has to be this special type of buy-in in a dynasty where guys want to be a part of a dynasty. Yeah. Tom Brady is the perfect example. Now, not everyone can be married to an international supermodel who's making millions and millions herself, but he took less money at every turn. There was a time when Case Keenum and Tom Brady were right next to each other in terms of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL when Case Keenum was a Bronco. And so there has to be McKinnon's already on a super team-friendly deal. He's about to get a new one. Is that going to be team-friendly again? Nazem Kadri, does he just say, I love Denver, I want to stay around? Val Nichushkin, those things. You have to have a little bit of screw the money, let's get the wins.
Right. It does take that special salary cap-wise especially. It takes that. I kind of feel a little...
But if you look at the Avs right now, you've got Gabriel Landeskog on a long-term contract, Mikko Rantanen on a long-term contract, Sam Girard on a long-term contract, Nathan McKinnon's contract comes up in the next year, this season.
And they'll get it. And
Kale's
you'll
under
see
control
there.
for a while.
Yeah.
Kale is too. So you have them right now. You have them locked in. So
Yep.
you don't have the Nazem
And-
Kadris, Darcy Kempers locked in.
But those guys, as much as I love them, are the guys that can kind of change pieces with it still being the same dynasty.
And that fits what we were just talking about on the Broncos podcast of once you have a system in place, you can just keep cycling guys in who fit the system, and you're creating the next Valentushkin. Valentushkin was considered a bust.
Right.
He comes in, and you're just like, play alongside
I mean,
the best
Andre
players in the world, and all of a
Burakovsky-
sudden he's good.
He had a full season with zero goals and 0 penalty minutes.
And he was playing.
His last season, yeah, and that's why the Warriors are as. Who the fuck is Jordan Poole? And then
He's good, but yeah, but
nobody thought that coming out.
Right.
Andrew
He's
Wiggins
made
was
the
a
best
bust,
version
and
of
then he
himself.
was almost a
Yeah.
Finals MVP level player.
You see that with Andre Burakovsky too on the Avs.
Yep.
Who was a nobody before,
But
or
he
wasn't
also
a
won a
nobody. He was
championship.
struggling
Yeah.
before.
So here's the arc of a dynasty. Usually the first one you have to get over the hump, and it can be really hard, really hard. That's what the Avs are in. They're trying to get over the hump. I feel like the second one's the easiest because it's almost like you were young enough and hungry enough that you still want it, but you're also like confident from this last one where you're like so much of a team like the Avs. It's can they be confident when their back's against the wall and this or that? Because does it remind you of past failures or this or that? But once you get over the hump, you're just kind of like. We saw this with the Warriors. To your point, when they got down to the Celtics. They got down several times in this playoffs, or some team was beating them, and they're just like, "Dude, we're the Warriors. We know what we're doing." And I feel like the Avs. I honestly believe this watching them. They're so much better than every other team. Like when I watch them, they're so much better. Once they have that final piece of confidence, like we did it, I kind of feel like they might go on a crazy. If they get over this one, I feel like next year they might go on a crazy run.
Yeah, and something you spoke to, you said young, and there's two types of championship teams. There's a championship team that's like the Warriors when they won their first one. It's like, holy shit, this team's really good.
Yeah.
Now this could happen for a long time. And then there's the ones that are put together by, like
Peyton Manning and DeMarcus
yeah,
Ware.
exactly, where it's
J.J.
like
Ward.
we have to do it this year or else this
right.
team, and then we saw what we saw the last 6 years. So I think being young makes it easier to go on in year to year, but like having the Avs 2-3 best players are still in their 20s.
Right. I have a lot of respect for Tampa Bay. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I'm not the Avs guy, so if there's like Tampa Bay people that tune in, like this is not me. Like I just watch the Avs kind of casually. I really enjoy them. But I do think if they get over this one, though, it propels. Like I get so excited for next year.
It's almost like you can steal the dynasty energy, right?
I like this.
You're like, oh, you thought. Now it's
Yeah.
ours, and now we're going to take it and run with it.
The ring. It's like
Past-
the ring or
yeah,
something.
Like, exactly. One thing I will say about the Lightning, though, is people don't talk about being scared of the Lightning. They talk about being scared of Vasilevsky. Like, when any conversation that's about the Lightning is like rarely about Stamkos and all these other guys, it's like Vasilevsky.
Right.
How can you solve him? Can you beat him? He's close out games. He's given up 1 goal on 200
Right.
shots. Like all these
Right.
crazy stats. And so I'm trying to think of like an example, a cross-sport example. It almost he's too young, but it kind of reminds me of Brady. Like you're not worried about the Patriots,
Yeah.
you're worried about Brady.
Ooh.
Well, it was like that.
Interesting.
It was like the Giants' little run. Like you were worried about Madison Bumgarner, and that's about as
Right.
close to me as it gets now. Granted, they can only pitch every 4 or 5 days, but
Yeah.
hockey is the one sport to me where you can have one player truly. I mean, the LA Kings never even sniff titles without Jonathan Quick.
Yep.
And he was the reason. And he wins the Conn Smythe. He was the reason they won it. And like you said, they have great players. They have Hedman, they have Braden Point, they have Steven Stamkos. But Vasilevsky is the key cog in this entire team.
It is kind of an interesting little detail here. I'm curious, like maybe the Avs, though, as this era evolves, maybe they end up getting or finding the young. I mean, that's the one piece that sometimes it gets. That would be like the KD piece for the Avs, where if they found either a young or a veteran came in just because they wanted to win, and you're like, now it's unfair.
That's a perfect point. Yeah, like if somehow like a guy like he's never leaving the Rangers, but Shesterkin's a great goalie. If he was like, I want to play for the Avs, it's like, holy shit, this team just won a title.
Yeah.
We might never lose.
Yeah, no, they might never lose again. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how you felt with the Warriors when they
Yeah.
got KD. You're like, how the fuck do you beat this team?
And they were right. It was
Also,
like, well,
any goalies out there who are going to be free agents, I would highly recommend it. You take so much less work when you play for the Avs.
Oh, yeah.
You only have to make like 25 saves in
Yeah.
a game, maybe.
yeah.
I was gonna say, if you are a free agent looking at the Avs, you're like, oh my god, let me go play on that team.
Yeah.
Every player that has come to play on the Avs, their game has elevated. Just being around, the work ethic, everything. It's just amazing.
Colorado's such a cool hockey town too, man. I really believe it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go into the other ones though, because Nuggets, Broncos. Which team do you think? Again, one championship would be good for both of those teams. But is there a team that you feel is maybe best set up to create sustained success, maybe even a dynasty?
I mean, one of these teams has the best player in its league,
right?
And that's obviously Nikola Jokic. So if they were able to get over the hump, that's an organizational hump, right?
Right.
It's never happened. They've never even been to the finals. So if they were able to do that, and you just think about the ascension that would have to take place for that to happen. We already know Jokic is somehow probably going to be even better next year than he was this year. He does it every year. But, for the Nuggets to win championships, that means Jamal Murray elevated to bona fide superstar. Michael Porter Jr. was healthy and was a massive contributor. And so it's if those planets align, you could see them going on a run. Someone in the comments said Jokic is the only one that anyone's scared of. I disagree.
Yeah.
Ask the Utah Jazz and the LA Clippers fans about that.
Jamal Murray scored 50 points twice in a playoff series. Yeah. So everyone, that's definitely scary.
Yeah, and piggybacking off RK's point, they have 3 young, Jokic is still young-ish, he's getting to his prime of his career, but they have 3 players that in their own right could take over a game.
Yeah.
And they could have a Warriors-like ascension where nobody really thought, that everybody's like, oh, Steph's pretty good, Klay's pretty good, but these guys are bona fide good. Now they just need to be healthy.
Yeah, I think Jokic got over the hump that we're talking about as an individual. They're still we don't know how he performs in a finals. That's a whole different level, so we'll see. I still think obviously there's a lot of boxes to check, but I do feel like there was something that clicked in his brain where he's like, I'm better than everyone that tries to guard me, and now he plays with a different level of confidence, and his scoring went from 22 points per game to 26, 27, and I think that it was just a switch that flipped where he's like, these guys can't guard me at all. So. I feel like if the Nuggets were to get one, say they come out next year and win, I think it would be similar to what I'm talking about with the Avs, where all of a sudden Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, all these other guys, everything's so much easier because they're like, oh yeah, that's right, we're the best. And now we get to play to the maximum of our skill set, and we would see such a different level of this exact same team.
Yep.
You've also got Bones Highland, who's young and could be around, Michael Porter, who we haven't really seen unlock, so maybe there's even young pieces there that could grow. Broncos... Russell Wilson's a winner.
No one's won more than Russell Wilson since he's been in the league, which is pretty
insane.
special in terms of just winning percentage. But I don't think any NFL team is putting together a dynasty anytime soon, which is awesome for the health of the NFL. Just look at the quarterbacks around right now. It's Mahomes, it's Allen, it's Burrow. Then you still have Brady, and you still have Rodgers, and you've got Russell Wilson, and you've got Justin Herbert, and it's just there are so many good teams out there that I don't think anyone's putting together a dynasty. And the other thing I'll say about the Broncos is they definitely need more top tier talent. I would put Russ in that category. I would put Justin Simmons in that category, and I would put Pat Surtain in that category. Now let's go back to 97, 98. It's John Elway, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp. It's, I guess I probably wouldn't put Rod Smith or Ed McCaffrey in the top
They're really good,
tier.
But yeah, they're not.
Then you have multiple offensive linemen who fit into that. Then you have Steve Atwater. You just go down this list of who were the top tier players, and there was a ton. So the Broncos need more of that, in my opinion, to even be able to start dreaming of that.
Are they coming
I can
from
dream
within?
of one.
Are they coming from within, in your opinion, or are they coming from moves?
I think George Payton has shown a really great knack for drafting, so it could definitely come from there. But
is Judy? Could we be talking at the end of this year that we're like, you know what, Judy is a top receiver?
Well, yes. I think the Broncos finally got the one position. Obviously, it's clear as day if you watch a Broncos game the last 5 years or been a fan, you know what they needed. Now they have it to where I think people this year are going to, Cortland Sutton is a good fucking receiver. Yep. Tim Patrick is a good receiver. Jerry Jeudy could be a really good receiver. They're super deep. Somebody's getting cut there. That's Travis Fulgham's the 6th or 7th receiver, and the dude tore up the league for 6-7 weeks.
Right.
There's guys on this team that will be unlocked that I think, the league's already talking about the Broncos a ton again, which we love, but I think there's going to be a lot of players that are wow, Albert Okwuegbunam could be a Julius Thomas with a Russell Wilson versus somebody throwing him a flat route. There's guys on this team that could be unlocked.
What's Javonte Williams when the defenses are stacked to play against the pass?
Right.
Yeah, I think the Broncos have that untapped potential that they now it's like they have no excuse. Yeah. Like if those guys, any of those players, if they're healthy all year and they're not good, they're just not good.
I 100% agree. And that's why, like, with Jerry Jeudy, it's like he could be a Pro Bowler this year. He also could be a bust.
Oh, he could swing hard either direction. With the Broncos, so in basketball, I don't know, careers are longer or this or that. With football, do you feel like there's maybe more urgency to start the clock now in the dynasty? Meaning, do they need to win like now or next year in order for it to be an extended window?
It depends on how long you think Russell Wilson's going to play.
Well,
and how long,
like 8 years or
can
something?
he sustain the way that Brady and Rodgers have? Because then he's got like 10 years.
That's a long time.
And you're going to have 3 different iterations of the Broncos during that stretch.
Right.
And what's crazy is like when you look at even Peyton Manning, now he took just a nosedive that last year, which is kind of crazy to think they won that year. But most of these guys are playing at a Super Bowl level. Tom Brady's obviously the ultimate unicorn, but like Aaron Rodgers is still playing back-to-back MVP.
Yeah.
So it's clearly doable to play well that long. It's different. When Peyton Manning came here, it was like they got to start winning right now.
Right.
Because you had 4 years, With Russ, I'm saying 6 to 8. Just I don't want to set the expectations too high, but that means you've got a chance to go through like a whole cycle and then redo it. I mean, technically, John Elway was able to pull that off during the 4 years with Peyton Manning, right? Best offense in the league. That didn't work. Yeah. Give me the best defense in the league.
Yeah, and I think going to that point of getting the best defense in the league and building that, the Russ move was so late in the whole window of where players were going to sign. Like, I think if other players out there, free agents, whatever the Broncos determine that they need after this year, if this is a team that makes the playoffs, has a playoff run, or even if they lose in the first round, other players are going to want to build on that. And football is the game where, like basketball, you can add pieces. And obviously with these superstars moving and making super teams, it's a little different now. Yeah. But football, it's like when the Broncos added Talib, TJ Ward, and DeMarcus Ware in the matter of 2 days, everybody's like, holy shit, this is legit. Right. And you can do that in the NFL.
Right.
Yep. And in the NFL, it really feels like guys will do the discount to win thing, especially those late career players.
We've had in the city of Denver teams that felt more likely to win than the Broncos or Nuggets do right now. I mean, the Avs feel really like they just have this great shot, especially at extended winning. But we've never had all three. Like, this is the best window we've had of the three of them. And the Rockies, sadly, the one, stepchild of it all. But this really does feel like the weirdest where we're talking about 3 teams, not just winning, but having extended success. We'll see if that translates to the ultimate success. Once, twice, 3 times in a row, whatever it is. But it's pretty cool to see.
Was it a couple weeks ago you did have a topic about that, right? How many in the next 5 years?
We didn't do it on the show, but it was like a kind of a loose question. Should we ask it on the other side?
Let's do it.
All right. We'll do a break because I want to do that. Then I want to end with just kind of talking about the best players to root for a fan base, and kind of talk about where Denver is and where they have an opportunity. Because I actually think this whole thing ties together with we're actually in an opportunity for some of the best threads, like career arcs for some key players that I think is pretty cool.
All right. First, let's give a shout out to Manscaped. It's like 100 degrees out all weekend.
Oh, wow.
You can't be leaving the house without a little bit of crop preserver. And then when you come back to the house, you got to have a little crop reviver. 2 great products, anti-chafing, anti-odor, awesome stuff. And honestly, like once you start using these products, you'll wonder why you went this far in your life without them. And that's not even talking about the Lawnmower 4.0, which is an awesome product as well. But head over to Manscaped, use the code DNVR for 20% off. Plus free shipping, and get in on some of their great products. It's not just the lawnmower, it's all of their ancillary products as well.
We're also presented today, guys, by Breckenridge Brewery, the hometown craft beer, the Colorado Avalanche. They're celebrating this historic winning season with people who have supported this community throughout such a challenging year by gifting Avs tickets to a pair of community stars each home game during the playoffs, even, yes, this Stanley Cup Finals. We invite you to nominate a stellar community member, an Avs fan who should get the chance to celebrate at a playoff game this season. Each home game, we will hook up a fan and a friend with tickets, gear to match, and, of course, the drink of the season,
Amber Ale.
Avalanche Amber Ale. Breckenridge Brewery also donate a portion of all proceeds of sales of Avalanche Amber through the playoffs to the Community Fund Boulder County to benefit the Marshall Fire victims. Visit breckbrew.com to nominate a community star and send them to the Avs playoff game. All right.
Do you think anyone's nominated me?
I think you've been nominated a lot of. You probably disqualified from this. Come on.
That seems unfair.
That does.
I just want to know if I've been nominated.
That would be good to know.
Reach out to the people at Breck.
Reach out and let them know.
List?
Don't accept this nomination. This is a burner account of RK. Let's ask it real quick. Just this kind of if we handicapped, what is it, 2000 or 2022? Let's talk about the 20s. We got 8 more years of the 20s. If you were to handicap how many championships the city of Denver would get, what would you set the line? You're the handicapper here. What would you set the line at?
I would set the line. Fuck. If I do this, if the Avs win, when the Avs win the Stanley Cup this year, I set the line at 3.5. Right now, it's 2.5.
Right now it's 2.5, but so the odds are way different than
Yeah, to me, if you get that one this year, the fucking Avs could do that by themselves in the next before 2030.
I think 2.5 is a healthy line. We always winning a title just takes so many not only do you have to have the right team to do it, but then you just have to avoid the crazy injury, the crazy bounce, the crazy call. These things are, I think, more on a razor's edge than we ever 2.5.
We got one in the 2000s.
One in the 2010s.
We got one in the 2010s. So getting 3 is
really hard.
Really hard. That's an all-time decade for a sports city.
It would be so the 90s were better, right? Because you get the Avs 1 and you get so it's 3. So yeah,
and then you also have a Buffs national championship in there. That's
there you
the
go.
Best decade in.
So you get 3.5.
History.
It was a split title.
No, it wasn't.
That's where you get the half, and then you push on a half. That would be the
first
first ever push on a half in the history of the world.
I will absolutely take a half championship for the Buffs again. Yeah, I mean, that's like your sports town USA. If you get 3 in a decade, in my opinion.
I would take the under on this, and it's not that I'm pessimistic. I just know how hard it is. I think if you told me that's 2.5, I would say the likeliest outcome is an Avs 2 titles. The third one then becomes almost split between a Broncos, Avs, Nuggets title, which again could happen. And there's always a little bit of edge that maybe the Avs only get one and the Broncos pick up. But 2.5, I think I would probably just take the under on that. It's too hard.
Crazy things can happen, though. I mean, think about the 2000s. The Rockies almost just snuck in there out of nowhere and won one.
Oh, man, the Rockies being the team that pushes it over the edge. It's what? Who saw this coming?
I actually have a little feeling that during this run that we're currently going to be in, where the Avs are dominant, I'm not going to say a championship, don't worry. But I have a feeling that the Rockies are just going to get a random really good season.
And we're going to have the greatest year in Denver sports history.
There's going to be 4 out of 4 all in the playoffs.
What's the greatest year in Denver sports history so far?
It's got to be 98.
Well, you could say the calendar year of 96 to 97, right?
Yeah, that would we're kind of, I guess, yeah.
I feel like it does. The Avs get it, and then the Broncos get the very next NFL Super Bowl.
Yeah. Alrighty, I'll go with it. So then you think there's a year that might even surpass that? You get all 4 teams that were grabbing 96 was the worst year the Nuggets ever had.
Yeah, I mean, and who knows what the Rockies were doing that year.
That'd be so cool. I'm going to say it would be so cool to have. We really have never had it with all 4 teams at the same time sort of vibing. It would be so dope. And honestly, Denver being such a transplant city, sometimes 1 year of that could be the thing that stems it, where it's hey, everybody remembers the summer of 2025. That was just a magical year across the city.
Also, I think every good city is a transplant city.
Of course, yeah, that's the thing about it. Exactly.
I've said this before though, but I want to say it again. I truly believe the Avs championship influenced the Broncos 2 championships that followed.
Ooh, I love this take.
In the way that John Elway was here. He'd been here since '83. He had gotten them to the championship. Never gotten it. Yeah. All of a sudden, the Avs walk into town, hoist the cup in year 1, and Elway and the Broncos are just hell no.
We can't let this happen.
This is our town. We have to step it up. And so I legitimately believe that energy carried over, and I think it can happen again.
Do you think it's happened already? Because the Avs have built this good team. The Nuggets have built this good team. Do you think there was... Or do you think the Broncos are just existing in a vacuum on this?
I think there's definitely there was added pressure on the Broncos to make a big splash, and they did it. And Russ is, he's a great part of this whole thing. He's going to the Avs games wearing a McKinnon sweater, but I legitimately think like if the Avs win, he's going to be jealous.
Right.
And be like, I got to do this too.
I love that. I'm with it.
Yeah, they're going to enjoy that championship parade and then want a piece of it themselves. Because I think if the Broncos win it, they would just be McManus. That
was on the last one.
Only carryover.
Yep.
That's
Von
great.
Miller and McManus were the last two.
It's crazy. There's also a Kroenke level thing here of like, they won it with the Rams. You win it with the Avs and you have the Nuggets here. I do wonder if I wonder if it changes their perspective at all. Like, I just wonder, you would never know their mind frame or how they operate, but I do wonder if there's this thing of like, you become the celebrated owner and you get to like walk around every arena just kind of like, oh, you guys aren't like us where we win everything. And it makes you almost more addicted to it or this or that.
Yeah, I mean, if the Avs have one, that's 2 in
1 year.
1 year for Kroenke.
Yeah.
And then it could be,
And you got the Nuggets coming up, so there's a chance that they end up winning a few. And again, I don't know. You're like starting to project my own feelings into a billionaire who seems to have no emotions, but you never know how they would react. But you win a lot like that, and all of a sudden you get heralded by everyone. Maybe it's a thing that happens.
You have to have like a checkbox where you're like, I want all of my teams to win a championship.
You would think, man. You would think you would want that, but who knows? Steph Curry winning this and winning it the way he did, and he cries that's after he wins. It made me think that being a Warriors fan, I know a lot. Being Warriors fans, there's been few players who have been so rewarding as Warriors fans have been for watching Steph. He's an underdog. He's fun as hell. Wins a lot, giving you all these great memories. And then he has this added benefit that very few players of his caliber have, which is he's been underrated every year, including this one. Like even now, even going into this year, people were like, the Warriors will never win it. Steph will never win it again, this or that. And you're like, and they smack everyone. So he had the benefit of being good enough to, you always have people doubting and you always get to prove them wrong. So to me, he has an arc that is unlike all but 2 players. I think Chicago fans rooting for Michael Jordan probably had the single greatest arc you could have. He was as fun as anybody, as popular as anyone, and he'd never let you down. Once he reached the top, you get almost a whole decade of it. And obviously Tom Brady gave the city of Boston 20 years of we were in it every single year. I think those are the only 2 players that I look at the player city combo and say they had a better arc from start to finish.
By the way, speaking of championship energy carrying over, you just reminded me. The Boston energy that Brady washed off on the Red Sox, it did on the Bruins as well. Right. And then he goes to Tampa, and the same thing happens.
Oh, my God. We got to get Tom Brady come here. Damn it.
He actually has a crazy track record. Like, everywhere he's lived in his entire life, they've won a championship while he lived there.
That's absolutely insane. He is a warlock.
He really is. But, yeah.
Let's go to Denver, though, first here, because you understand the concept. It's the idea of, like, who was the most rewarding person in Denver to root for?
Ever?
Yeah. I think it's an easy one, personally.
John Elway.
John Elway has the Michael Jordan storybook. It's to a lesser extent, but where he gave you lots of fun, even though there was heartbreak in it for a lot of that. It was fun basically from start to finish. There was like 1 or 2 years in there that kind of sucked. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, it was fun. There was great memories. And then it culminated with 2 titles, but walk off into the sunset.
Yeah, and I think this may be a little bit of an overstatement, but I think if Nikola Jokic wins a title, I think that blows John Elway out of the water.
You think it blows him out of the water?
In terms of most fun to follow?
Yeah, most fun to follow, most fun to root for, underdog, constantly getting shit talked.
He has Steph. Him and Steph are the same.
Yeah, like if Nikola Jokic, and granted, I think the only thing holding that back is there's obviously great Nuggets fans in Denver and a lot of them. I think when you look at it based on the Broncos fan base, it's completely different, and then you just can't control that. But I think for those of us that are Nuggets fans and like just they put all sports on about the same level. Everybody likes something a little bit more. I think Nikola Jokic blows that out of the water with the heartbreak, the game 82 loss, then losing his teammates, still fighting through it, and then winning a title. I think that just changes everything.
Improbable MVP. There's a lot there.
One thing I'll say about Elway, though, is it had this really cool... It wasn't cool, I'm sure, during it. I was a little too young to know. But there's a big gap there where Elway loses a bunch, and then they don't even get back to one for 7-8 years.
Right. And there's there's like a 4-win year in there. That's like some bad ones.
And I guarantee you at some point in there, people said Elway's never going to do it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We haven't reached a point right now where anyone's ever saying Jokic could never win a title.
Yeah.
And that like Elway then getting over it once and then doing it back to back is just like the ultimate FU to everyone who doubted him. But I agree. Jokic to this point, and I've said this before, but he's my favorite athlete I've ever watched because of that. Like he keeps paying it off for us. You invest into Jokic and then he pays it back.
The other thing about Elway though, and again, I grew up with Elway. This was my first like hero. He had so many comeback wins that he had the Jordan thing where I just kind of felt like they were always going to win. They'd be down 10 points in the fourth and I'd be like, well, this can be dope. Like we'll see how this plays off because I know it's going to. To me, he's number one. I think Sakic might be number two. In large part because he's won a lot. His teams were always good. There was rivalries. He's a very likable guy. I think Sakic might be number two, like best arc. If you were just saying you're a super fan, was it most rewarding?
Well, and he's about to go into the win it as a player and then GM for that
really
same
cool.
team and win it again. Yeah. I mean, that echelon of just him as a person puts him right up there, I think, in Colorado sports.
The only thing I'll say about Joe is he was so quiet that you missed out on a little. Like Patrick Waugh was out there talking shit around every corner.
He was 3 for me for that exact reason. I was like, he's a little crazy. He's more like the crazy uncle, and
that's sick when that guy's on your side, you know, and sure. Like he's in there talking about I can't hear him because I've got 2 rings in my ears. Like that's epic. Yeah. Whereas Joe was like the classic captain quarterback style, like never say anything wrong, just go by the book.
Right.
I don't know how much that changes it, but
you know what though? To me, this is almost the Steph Draymond thing where Steph is kind of the quiet one and Draymond's the one talking trash, and everybody loves Steph the more.
That's true. I also will say this, though. While Joe Sakic was incredibly clutch, Patrick Waugh literally always played his best in the biggest games.
Right.
And so that's like, if you're a Patrick Waugh stan and you're like, if Twitter existed, on Twitter just being like, yeah, just wait for the big game. He's going to shut him out, like, or whatever, get close. That was a sick part of Patrick Waugh.
And then after that, I have Manning. It was such a short run, but I mean, are you kidding me? The first 3 years that were not even the championship year. The championship year to me was by far the least fun of the Manning years. But the first 3 were like so absurdly fun that they might have been my favorite 3 years of football ever.
Yeah, him coming over and nobody knowing what to expect, but after a playoff run, a playoff appearance with Tim Tebow, everybody was like, this team is close, and then you get a guy like that. I think we could be precursoring to what's about to happen with the Broncos as well.
2013 was the most fun I've ever had watching football.
It was the best. I'm telling you, I think I've had a hangover from NFL football since that.
Yeah.
Even the Super Bowl year, I was kind of like, it was pretty fun.
It was really weird to go from the best offense ever
to almost inept.
This like scrape it by, just score at the last second to win offense.
So that's the list. I don't have anybody else for Denver that I think makes an all-time like best, most rewarding. I mean, there's obviously been great players that have been very fun, but when we talk about great overarching career arcs that were rewarding,
I think
I'm
you
not
have the opposite, which is Carmelo.
Yeah,
just like you stand him and there was never a payoff.
Yeah, for sure. There was 1 year that was really felt great, but they got swept or lost with 1 win every other year.
It was tough.
If the Rockies win in 2007, is Todd Helton there?
I think probably.
Yes.
That was like one run though. That's the thing. Even if it was one
taste of success amongst a bunch of
it would have been like if Elway won one title but then was never made the playoffs the rest of the time. You'd be like, well,
that's true. But it's like that,
that rewarding.
That
I don't
constant
know.
Like he stuck with it, stuck with the team that was nothing, and then all of a sudden goes to the World Series. And
if we go all time now, just to end this, we'll wrap it up here real quickly. But if we go all time, I think Michael Jordan was the #1 athlete to stand. If you're a Bulls fan in the '90s, you probably had the most rewarding. He was awesome. Like it wasn't that he won boring; he won awesomely. Always came up clutch. Had the greatest story, and he was the most popular person. Like you were crazy. I think Tom Brady #2.
And you also get to remain cool by continuing to stand him all the way until now. Like if you are just like still a Jordan stan and you like rock Jordans all the time, like there's no like way to like tap back into being an Elway stan, you know? Like,
right. He's the top cool athlete for his time. Tom Brady, the same. We already went over it. One team. Wayne Gretzky, I think, is up there. Like if you have the dopest hockey player ever and you got the run of championships, I imagine Edmonton fans in the '80s were well fed.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that would be like, and he's still around too. That's part of it that like adds to it. Like he's still on TV. You get to see him. You're like, oh my god, that's our guy. Like I'm the opposite of that. I think it cheapens Wayne Gretzky that he's on TV.
I think he's larger than that.
Oh, I'm with you on this one. It's the same thing with Jordan. We never see from Jordan's weirdly not cool anymore, but we don't care because he's not in front of the camera reminding us of it all the time. Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you on this.
Like I see Wayne Gretzky on the TNT set, and I'm like, you shouldn't be here.
I know. I'm so with you on
that
this.
That is funny. But I think the cool
he's
part
sitting
about
next to Paul Bissonnette, who like scraped his way through the NHL for years.
It's a great take.
Yeah, but I think the coolest part about that is for other fans that like know what Gretzky was, and then you like hear him talk about Cale Makar, and you're like,
yeah, that.
Oh my God, like you're like, if this guy's fucking saying it.
When Gretzky in a series that included McKinnon and McDavid and all the Draisaitl said Makar was the best player on the ice every night, like that gave me goosebumps.
This is the opposite in NBA where all the old heads are like, these guys suck today. None of them are any good at anything. It's so lame. Number 4 to me. I almost had Steph Curry here. That's how rewarding this has been, but I had to put Magic Johnson. He invented Showtime. He changed basketball to make it the most boring sport in the world to the most fun. He was in LA. He was this like symbol of like being a playboy. The only thing is it ended a little prematurely in a very tragic way with him obviously getting HIV. But to me, I think Lakers fans were invented. I mean, I know there was a base of them, but they really became the brand through Magic Johnson. And I'm like, yeah, they probably had a great run.
Where does Kobe fall here?
He's a little bit lower. I have Steph Curry next, and I know that's crazy, but Warriors fans have had the greatest run. I mean, they just get to clown everyone every night. And then I have Kobe behind him. Kobe had some dark moments there off the court that I think for a while there you kind of had a tough time being a Kobe stan.
Yeah, I think
Kobe was so much cooler than Steph, though.
I think if you stand Kobe, that's like never leaving you. And especially with the current situation of what happened, I feel like that almost like everybody not forgets, but it pushes the dark things way deeper and brings just his play to the light and who he was on the court and the amazing things he did. I've watched a good amount of basketball, and Steph Curry's the best shooter of all time. Nobody's a killer like Kobe Bryant.
There's no question about, again, this isn't about the better player, this or that. Another thing about, like, if you were a Lakers fan in 2004, you had Kobe, you had Shaq, and they hated each other, and it lost them a title. So you had to go through this, like, weirdness of picking a side against your own team.
The only thing for me is that I don't think Steph is cool.
That's fair enough.
Like when he tries to be cool, it makes him even less cool to me.
I don't even think he tries to be cool. I think
he does like the shimmy and like stuff like that. I'm like, this looks so bad.
This next one's sex. Number 7 on my list is Derek Jeter. If you're a Yankees fan in the late 90s, you just won every title, and he's like the Mr. New York. I think they were well fed.
Yeah. He's like the face of it, but hot take, Derek Jeter really isn't that good.
It doesn't matter. But it also doesn't matter for this thing. It's what jersey were they wearing?
That actually might even make it more rewarding if you're a Yankees fan and someone's like, Jeter's not that good, and then he like wins another championship.
Yeah, and you're like, that's 6 titles. Like whatever.
Some of those teams are just like. Do you think there's a point where a fan base? What's the point? So talking about a dynasty and the end of it, what's the point where fans just get almost bored?
Ooh, I love.
You know what I mean? Like
get bored.
Like it's like
I hope I can reach
spoiled.
that.
I mean,
I want to find out.
Like it's got to be a point where you're like, oh yeah, we just expect to do this, but we can't really. Like it's so much more rewarding when your team like fights and fights and fights and then wins one, and then you can talk about it. But like, is there a point where it's like boring?
You know what? I think all Warriors fans did not enjoy the KD years as much as the other ones, because I think there was a little bit of that of like, well, Steph played bad tonight and they won by 20. Like, all right, this is kind of lame. Yeah, there's something to your guys.
There's a weird thing that happens with success, especially in long season sports, where it's just like, all right, let us know when the playoffs start.
Right.
You know, and like,
but this is the difference though between the Steph's Warriors though.
Like, we're sitting here like leaned over watching the end of a Nuggets game in the middle of the season. That really doesn't matter that much.
The difficulty.
If you've won 3 championships, you're just not like living and dying on a game.
Here's where you're wrong though, because the Warriors in 2015 and 16 and even a little bit this year, they didn't just win every night. They danced on everyone's grave by the third quarter.
Yeah,
and like, there's something when you're watching your team and you're like, we're gonna win. It's gonna be boring, but guess what? Yoke's gonna throw like 5 no-look passes in the fourth because we're up by 20, and it's like that's the part I can't wait for.
Yeah, but piggybacking on that point, like I don't know why this thought entered my mind, but I'm sitting there the other night at Ball Arena, Stanley Cup Game 1, and I'm like, I don't want to fucking come to a regular season game here. I'm literally like, after that, I'm like, you're not gonna see me here for 40 straight games waiting for a couple playoff rounds when they know this is their peak.
Yeah,
it's a little weird.
Rounding it out, Larry Bird. Gave you 3 titles. Was super fun. He's in the top 10 for me. Like Celtics fans, Larry Bird, they had a great time. Tim Duncan, number 9, won 5 titles. The only thing I'd knock him down is kind of boring.
Yeah.
He's so weird and
but
lame.
But if you are standing him, you love that because everyone's like, he's boring, and you're like, I just don't care because we win every night.
I'm telling you, 2016 to me was not like, it's not in my top 5. It's not in my top 3 favorite Broncos seasons. And I know it's one of 3 they won, but that's what I think of. Like, Tim Duncan was the 2016 Broncos, like his era.
15,
he kept
15.
He kept winning 88 to 84 in the finals, and you're like,
yeah, you just can't. It's just like
I don't know, man.
They're going crazy. I'm saying it's fun. I would take it. I'm just saying it's below Larry Bird, even though Larry Bird only won 3.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, you don't care when your team's winning.
My last one is Montana and Rice. I think the 49ers fans of the 90s, late 90s, or 80s and 90s were well fed as well. That was a rewarding career arc. So hopefully one of our players here, McKinnon fans, Kale McCarr fans, Nikola Jokic fans, what does Rudo say?
He's just talking about how like the regular season can lose its luster. The Avs took the last 2 weeks of the regular season off.
Yeah, that could happen. But that's 2 weeks. The rest of the season
and they
was
already
a lot of fun.
clinched the 1 seed.
I actually respect it. As somebody that covers the Nuggets, it's 82 games long. Like, if the Nuggets were up so much in the standings that the last 2 weeks I got to take a vacation before the playoffs begin to recharge the batteries, are you kidding me?
I don't think you're taking a vacation.
What do you mean?
So they clinched the 1 seed?
I'm taking a vacation.
Right.
I'm like, hey, man, they're going to be in the playoffs for 3 months. I gotta get out of town for a little bit.
I have a really good feeling that they're going to be the 1 seed next year. So
I love it.
There you go.
Well, that was
they
a fun
clinch it early
discussion.
for you.
We went a little bit long, but that's all right. It was fun talking dynasties. Hopefully the Avs can continue on the path to starting one tomorrow night. We're going to be here at the DNVR bar. We got pom-poms in the house. We're going to be absolutely packed. You're going to want to get here as early as possible. When do we open doors?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. You're going to want to get here about 2:45. Start standing in line if you want to get a table. It's going to be the party of the century, many people are saying.
We started this show during the week, and we ended it during the weekend.
Hell yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go. Hit that like button on the way out.